America. My name is Osei-Frimpong, and you're watching The Black Athenians. I come to you every Friday, 4-ish, to talk about the quality of political education, or to convey the quality of political education that will help make black communities whole. And I'm in Athens, Georgia. I do this at Broderick Flanagan Studio. Broderick Flanagan is an artist based in Athens, Georgia. And the quality of wisdom I disseminate every Friday works for Athens, it'll also work for Columbia. It'll also work, Columbia, South Carolina. It'll also work for St. Louis. It'll also work for anywhere there's a congregation of broke black people surrounded by white money in the suburbs. So that's pretty much everywhere there's a congregation of broke black people in these United States. And so I try to give the quality of political education that will make black communities whole, a lot of which entails how to fight white people, because it's a skill. It's not something they teach in school. Instead, they teach you how to accommodate yourself to white people, and then hopefully maybe they'll pick just you or your kid to ascend to a level while locking up all of your cousins. So I want to break that cycle, and I want entire communities, black communities, to do well and not just make a few black escapees. So that's quality of political education I deliver. And we're going to go. And the topic of today is how to get bills passed. And that's very important because people are talking about and you hear from both black and white elected officials. I have to say it just the right way because I have to go and do deals with these other elected officers, and that's how we get bills passed. I need someone, I need to not alienate the party. I need to not alienate the white donors. I need to get reelected and also be able to deal with all of the compatriots in order to get bills passed. Those bills that will be passed that way will never be good for black communities, and they'll never be the quality of bills we need, right? So because if you're passed that way, you're passed without actually changing any of the electorate's minds. You're passed with just doing deals with other elected officials. And there will always be compromise. And what color is that compromise? America. That compromise is always us. The color of compromise is black. Everybody else will win as long as we're willing to compromise black people. That's the story of the New Deal. It's a story of everything. The one time we didn't compromise black people, we went to a civil war. And then we had Reconstruction. And then we decided to compromise. And when you compromise, it's always black people. And that's when Reconstruction ended. Because when there was time to compromise, it was always compromising black people. So if you want bills to be passed, you have to use the elected officials as means, but the real war is citizen to citizen. The real war is ideological. The real war is cultural. And this is one thing people ask about, what's the difference between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren? Elizabeth Warren thinks you can deal with the Democratic Party and we can get something like single-payer health care or something like a decent stimulus package or something like decent bills that might include black people. And we can do it by working within the party and working with elected officials and just elected to electeds getting our, maybe pressuring electeds from outside and then having them compromise. And at the end, there'll be something that's good for, America. No. And this is what Sanders actually understands. He understands that if we want anything that actually matters, especially anything universal or anything that includes black people, even in the way of collateral damage, it's going to come from a political revolution where millions of people actually rise up and tell their elected officials, no, I want health care. You can't just elect the right person and expect them to go off in Washington or in your state capital or in your city capital and do a deal with other elected officials and have that end with justice for stigmatized communities. It will only end when the electorate forces elected officials to do right publicly. There are no secret revolutionaries. Honestly, there are no revolutionaries who have all right, so if you're a revolutionary and you have a mortgage, you better come from a revolutionary family, because if you're a revolutionary with a mortgage, you're actually not a revolutionary, because you're going to sell out whoever you're fighting for in order to save that mortgage, unless you have a revolutionary family, which means we need to actually start a revolutionary family. We need to actually talk about what it means to be part of a revolutionary family. If you're revolutionary but goes to a counter-revolutionary church, that means your counter-revolutionary church is telling you that the peace of Christ depends on you being a counter-revolutionary, which means we're going to have to fix that church. Like, these social institutions actually control and police the quality of electorate we need. So if we want like revolutionary policies, if we want policies that make black communities whole, that means we need families that support policies that make black communities whole. And that means we need churches that support policies that make black communities whole. We can't just assume we can make the policy differences and leave these other white supremacist institutions intact. And I get in a lot of trouble when I say that, like, if we're going to have justice in the United States, we need to go at the white family, and we need to go at the white church. It's because I believe, and I have reason to believe, that if we're going to have justice in the United States, we're going to have to go after the white family and go after the white church, because the white family and the white church is what tells white people that it's okay to be white supremacists and treat black people like garbage. They learn it at home. And unless you're going to put a cop in that home, or like many video cameras, and the cop better be me. You're going to put like little me's and pay me very well in a unionized job, like in a white home, calling fouls on little white families. Like, we need to actually get serious about the cultural institutions that support and reproduce white supremacy. That's going to be the white family and the white church. And any white person who's going to be honest with you is going to say at Thanksgiving dinner, they let their racist uncle and racist aunt and grandma and grandpa say whatever they want, because if they ever interject, like, that might jeopardize the inheritance. And old white money is a lot of money, and they're not going to jeopardize their inheritance just for the justice for the Negro. And if any of these kids actually check their rich racist grandpa or grandma, they'll get checked by their parents. They'll get checked by the parents, who will say, like, don't jeopardize grandpa's inheritance. He's old. We'll be better once he dies. And you know what? Once he dies, things don't get better, because for a variety of reasons. So you need an intervention into the white family. You need an intervention into the white church if you want to create the quality of electorate that will get the legislation passed, right? You can't trust elected officials to compromise with each other and work out a bill with each other concerning racial justice and it actually address black communities' problems. What you'll get if you do that is maybe like a charity program that'll pluck one lucky Negro out of the black community and, laud them. What's up? Or 16, or like a handful of black Negroes that will then end up being used as symbols against all of their cousins and securing justice for the entire black community. That's what happens when you let elected officials compromise with each other about what do the Negro need. Like, that's what happens. That's what happens. And if you want to avoid that, you need to go right at the electorate, and you need movement politics. And the people who tell you that movement politics is inappropriate are people who are not serious about actually passing the quality of bills or legislation or even the fight that is going to be adequate to our problems. Because we're not winning, we're losing. As it stands, we're not winning, we're losing. And any compromise bills is always going to be compromised on the backs of black communities. Even if, like, these winning bills, the best possible bills, will be passed for the sake of maybe a handful of black individuals. And then those individuals will be getting a job like being ideological control, Negro control on the black communities. All right. So what I'm saying here now is a theory of change that actually ends in change is a theory that pits citizen against citizen, not elected official against elected official. We need more aggressive arguments from citizen to citizens about, like, black people, our claim, about our justice. Because if we see the ideological structures that teach citizens what it means to be citizens, if we give white people control of our schools, our radio, depending on who you talk to, our family structure, our legal structure, like we're not going to win. There is no winning because we won't even know the fight. And this is the difference between listening to like a black radio station and like something like Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh spends 3 hours a day, and then Sean Hannity comes after him, spending another 4 hours a day telling white people what the fight is, being very clear about what the fight is. Freedom means keeping these people down. Freedom means retaining your gun so that when they get on your property, you could shoot them and keep them down. Freedom means letting white supremacists go and jailing all of the black people who may think about your daughters. That's what freedom means. Now, in contrast to that, go to a black radio station. You'll get a lot of Jesus, who's not about the fight, but like giving you the peace of heaven. You've already lost this fight here on earth, so go to you'll get your reward in the peace of heaven, or you'll get Steve Harvey or someone else who'll say freedom means everything except fighting white people about whiteness. And that's a problem. White people get the fight. Black media, black talking heads are told to distract you about the fight. I wish I had that clip of, do you know where that clip of Bobby Wright is about talking about the civil rights movement, how we lost it in 1 minute?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to send Matthew on finding that clip. Anyway, so we need the ideological structures that work the electorate in a way that actually will promote the quality of legislation and get it passed that we need. We can't allow like some sort of inside-outside strategy where we just kind of pressure electorates and then allow the elected officials to go make deals among themselves. Because as soon as they start making deals among themselves, they start compromising. And as soon as they start compromising, the compromise is always black. Everyone else might be fine. LGBT community might be fine. Women might be fine. As long as they're not black women. Or the black women might be fine as long as they're willing to trash black guys. Because there's one thing that there's a bipartisan consensus that like even the conservative white supremacists will agree with and the liberal feminists will agree with, and that is black men ain't shit. Everyone can agree on that. And so, that might tell you that the fight might be for black men, because if everyone can agree that black men ain't shit, that means the real revolutionary potential might be, Negroes like this one who comes at you on Friday at 4-ish to tell you the truth about your state in the world. And if you support what I'm doing, knowing that while I'm doing it, I'm making myself quasi-unemployable. If you support what I'm doing, go ahead and go to thefunkyacademic.com and you can give $5, $15, or $50 a month to help me kind of do what I'm doing, because I have to pay for lights and pay for rent, and I kind of want to pay for Matthew and get some new equipment, maybe pay for marketing. And if you think what I'm doing is important, it doesn't come for free. And if you're grateful, I like my gratitude in cash. Or like not necessarily cash, but gratitude doesn't exactly build movements, and it doesn't build budgets. Budgets build budgets. So go to thefunkyacademic.com and kick down a little bit for the quality of risk I am taking on for you people, because we are not honest about the distribution of risk and work. We talk a lot about the distribution of labor in the struggle and how like everybody needs to take their fair share of labor. What I do every Friday is take my fair share of risk on behalf of you. So if you appreciate me taking more than my fair share of risk, because a lot of you, I say what you want to say, but you're scared to say, I will accept it. I'll take my fair share of risk. All I'm asking you to do is actually like make sure I get my life insurance premiums paid by, going to PayPal. And yes, I did have to get life insurance once I started this show because of family pressure. I did acquiesce. I got myself a nice little policy just in case. By the way, if something happens to me, I am I can run. I am a very fit man. It was a plot, and I do not forgive nobody. I don't want anybody hugging any judge. I don't want anybody hugging the cop that shoots me. And it wasn't an accident. I have a low blood pressure, and I'm a very good athlete, and I'm agile. So it was a plot, and I do not forgive nothing. I need you to shut it down. I do not forgive nobody. And my family forgives nobody. If my kids watching this, they don't forgive anybody, and if so, you got them on the radio forgiving somebody, that's because they were got to. So nobody with my last name forgives anybody for anything that happens to me. I need you to I want fires and Molotov cocktails. Like, if I go down, I want blazes, because it was not by my own hand. It was because someone took me out, and I want justice. And justice comes in checks or like bullets or fire. If I get taken down, I want a lot of things, man, from the grave. They always say that what tradition is peer pressure from the grave. So I'm making it clear that what I'm saying is, if I go down, my life insurance policy, I want to be like a state capital. I want entire economies to come crumbling down because I was taken down as part of a plot. I do not forgive anybody for taking me down. And it was not by my own hand, and it was not an accident. I'm both adroit and of clear mind. And this will be my will and testament. So you can go back to this and say, what did Army want again? He wanted you to shut it down if something happens to me. Shut it down. Whatever it is, it goes down. Fill in the it as you want to. All right, so now let's go back to how to pass bills. You pass bills by going around the elected officials to the electorate and pressuring and changing the electorate. The real war is not elected officials to elected officials. It's really electorate to electorate, citizen to citizen. You do that by taking over the means of ideological control. That means your radio, your schools, your books, your media, your social media, everything that you control, like the production of ideas, you take it over and you be clear about what the fight is. And the fight, black people, is white supremacy and white terrorism. The fight for black people, the fight for justice for black people, is extracting the wealth that's currently being held by white people and putting it where it belongs, in the pockets of black people. And that's wealth and status. So if you like anything I'm saying, go ahead and share this on social media. It's very important. Do not be fooled by people who tell you that we have to, empathize with the elected official. We don't have to empathize with the elected official. That's not our job. The elected official's job is to tell us anything we need to hear to make their job easier. Elected officials want to get reelected. They have mortgages to pay. They have other interests that are not ours. Our job is to either replace them with someone who sounds like us, not just looks like us, sounds like us. Actually, no, it doesn't sound like us, sounds like me. Your job is to replace your elected official with someone who sounds like me. I don't even care if they look like me. They should sound like me. They could have boobs, they can be white, but they should sound like me. And they sound like me when they say that the problem with America is we need to go at the white family and the white church. So unless your elected official says that, then they're not about the fight. Because anybody who knows the fight knows that the white family is where it gets sustained and the white church is where it gets reproduced and transmitted. So unless you're going after that, you're not going after the fight, because the white family and the white church creates the white electorate who's very comfortable taking all of your cookies. The white family and the white church creates the white electorate that then tells them to be very comfortable taking all of your status and resources. So if you want justice for black people, if you want money for black communities, if you want status for black communities, if you want status for black men who it turns out might not be shit, if you actually want them to be status, that means you're going to have to destroy the engines of ideological production that teaches white people and black people, because black people end up watching white media because that's the media that's, has money behind it. That, white media has got like a better background and CGI and more than just Matthew. It's got like a team. I got Matthew, who I underpay, and like a slightly in-focused camera and a microphone. Like white media, I got soundtracks and technology that just works all the time. So like, black people watch white media because of production value. If you want me to have a higher production value, you need to give me money. And then I can hire people. So I hope that's clarified. I hope that's clarified the fight, right? The fight is electorate to electorate, citizen to citizen, civilian to civilian. It's you can't expect elected officials to do that work of getting bills you need passed, because the bills you need that even get written are going to be compromised if you just leave it up to elected officials, and it will be compromised on your back. And that's even against the inside out strategy, which means that like you have some people who are spies on the inside, and then you have some people who are activists on the outside, and they could work together. No, if you're black, there is no inside. Everybody on the inside is an agent. Just assume everyone's on the agent. Everyone on the inside is an agent. And if they're not an agent, they won't be quiet on the inside. They'll sound like me except being on the inside. And if they don't sound like me on the inside, they're just an agent. That means all these black pundits and all these black Democrats and all these black people who don't sound like me that you see on MSNBC, CNN, and anywhere, they're just negotiating the price for selling you out. That's all they're doing. They're pretending like they're on your side, but that's just like bargaining position because they're just trying to get a price to sell you out. In the end, we know how this ends. They will sell you out. If you're going to have a movement that that's actually securing freedom for black people, and that's going to be a revolutionary movement, it's going to start electorate to electorate. It's going to start with open, verbally fighting white people, so it doesn't have to come with guns. I would like it not to be a civil war, but we have two options. Either a civil war, which is how black people get freedom, or just standing black degradation. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse by all indices. It's getting worse, right? And I want a civil war. Thing is, I want a nonviolent one. I want one where we use everything except bullets to get black people justice. I want that very much. But that means we got to fight that one. And if you're going to fight that one, you're going to have to sacrifice all your white friendships. That means you're going to have to sacrifice you have to be willing to risk your white friendships. You have to be willing to risk your family inheritance. You have to be willing, and that's a lot to ask white people because white inheritance is a lot of inheritance. Like any ally who's not willing to risk that white inheritance isn't really an ally. Nah, because they're not going to say anything that their grandma might see and then cut them out of the will. Like any white ally who's not willing to risk that white inheritance, any ally who's not willing to risk that white job isn't really an ally. Because they're not going to say anything that their white boss might see and say like, well, you're not a good fit for the company anymore. So like, unless you're willing to risk that, you're not an ally. Like I said, I eat a lot of risk for the struggle. And depending on who you talk to, a disproportionate amount. So I'm going to need you at home to take on your fair share of risk. That means share this video with your people. That means, rehearse these arguments with the people in your family and the people in your church group and the people in your book club. You can even watch this in book club because everybody in your book club didn't actually read the book. So just watch this in your book club. And then after the video, you can just talk about what I'm saying. And you can talk about the virtues of the inside out strategy, where you think that like, well, we put pressure on the outside, but then have secret meetings with our spies on the inside, and then the people on the inside strategize and on how to pass the bill. But that's never going to work because when they strategize to pass the bill, they're always going to compromise. And when they compromise, the compromise is always going to be black communities. Compromise is always going to be black communities. So you need an outside strategy. You need to understand that the fight is really for the electorate. And in Georgia, that's very important because in Georgia, I talk to politicos who think Georgia is purple, which means they think Georgia is a swing state. Georgia is not purple. It's center right. Georgia is center right. And you know that in the last election. Last election, we had Stacey Abrams, very smart. One of the smartest people I've been in the same room with talking, tete-a-tete. I had a few meetings with her, just, Negro to Negro. And I've been around smart people. She's one of the smartest. Everything works. And she's been working for 10 years for that one election in 2018. And she had everything calibrated for that one election in 2018. And she lost to a third-rate white guy who looks just like every other white guy. Like Brian Kemp, our current governor in Georgia, is indistinguishable from literally 100,000 people in Georgia. So it took the best of us to lose to like the average of them. With a GOP campaign that never really got into fifth gear. Whereas Stacey Abrams' campaign was running on all cylinders. So Georgia isn't purple, it's conservative. And the electorate's conservative. So if you want to actually change Georgia, that means either bringing the Democratic Party all the way over to be indistinguishable to Republicans, which isn't going to be good for black people, or you need to work the electorate. Because there's no amount of just mobilizing the electorate that's going to actually get the quality of policies that will make black communities whole. You need to actually work and change the electorate in the way that Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity are working the electorate. As I do this show, they're doing their show. Their reach is a lot bigger than mine, but you can do that. You can fix that by actually sharing this video, by showing all the people this video. So we need to understand that the real fight to pass the legislation we need comes from working the electorate through the means of ideological control. And if we're really serious, that means we're going to have to go at the white family because that's where whiteness is learned and that's where white supremacy is learned and reproduced. Because when they say honor thy father, they mean honor thy racist father, which means make excuses and reproduce thy racist father's leanings. And the white church, because as long as the white church gives white people the peace of Jesus for being white supremacists, then they're going to just kind of be white supremacists because they get the peace of Jesus says it's okay to keep black people down. And so they're going to even if everything else says it's not, as long as Jesus says it's okay, their personal relationship with Jesus will say that it's okay to treat black people like trash. Then that's fine. We need to complicate that personal relationship with Jesus. We need to give him a Jesus that says, thou will go to hell if you continue to treat black people like trash. We need a Jesus that says, God bless the anti-racist and God damn the racists. And until they get that Jesus, their Jesus is going to be a problem. All right, so what's up? They need to repent every Sunday. They get to repent every Sunday and then go be awful Monday through Saturday. Matthew, anything I say makes sense?
Yeah, I also think there's a hidden element to the fight as well. I think a lot of citizens will try to convince you that there is no fight going on. I've been around a lot of white spaces and a lot of people try to convince me Matthew, there's no difference between black and white. Well, but obviously that's not even close to being true.
Well, okay, so how much time do I have?
You're at 27 minutes.
Oh, 27 minutes. Good. All right. So there's a funny thing about The Watchmen, right? So The Watchmen's a show that just came on HBO. They started out with a dramatization of the Greenwood Massacre. If you're black and watching this, you know that the Greenwood Massacre happened in 1921, where black people were doing pretty well in an area of Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were doing very well. They had businesses and kind of an art scene and doing fine. And then white people got tired of that. So they just went and took things. It was a massacre. They mowed some 300 black people down in the massacre, and they took what they wanted in the black shops. And if you talk to anybody who was there at the Greenwood Massacre, I read an interview and they said we were actually in it fighting the white people, although the white people had Tulsa cops. But what happened was the planes came and they started dropping bombs, and I think that's when we lost it. so we were in it, but then the bombs came, and that kind of So yeah, so the Greenwood Massacre was a massacre, and the Watchmen depicted that. And it was pretty much that. What that depiction shows is we've lost. Anybody who says that there isn't a fight is just admitting that we've lost, and part of the surrender is admitting that there isn't a fight. Any black person, white people may be ignorant, but if they're of a certain age and not ignorant, they're just trying to pretend that they're ignorant. Young white people might be ignorant. Black people know that especially black people over 25, know that there is a fight and we've just lost. And part of the negotiating the terms of surrender is pretending that there isn't a fight. I mean, there's 56% of the inmates in San Francisco's jail are black, whereas 4% of the population in San Francisco is black. You got black women in Boston are worth $8. The median net wealth of black women in Boston is $8. And the median net wealth of white women in Boston is like $234,000. So there's just, we've lost the fight. We've lost the fight. And part of the negotiating the surrender is that we don't talk about the fight. But I'm saying we need to get back in the fight if we care about self-determination for black communities. And not individuals, communities. Because it's not just about like an individual come up. It's about like my daughter's prom date. I want their family to have a job, right? And be black. Like I don't want like to have to sacrifice one of those things. So, like in white spaces where they say there's not a fight, it's because that's part of the surrender of the fight. Those are the terms of the surrender. We need to actually revoke those terms. And, white people should have a good sense of humor about revoking terms of surrenders because that's all they do with respect to Native Americans. So I want to renegotiate the terms of our surrender. We need to talk about the fight. We need elected officials to talk about the fight. We need elected officials who talk like I talk, right? And because that's not too much. Nothing I said is a lie. If you're trying to tell me that the white family isn't the problem or where whiteness is learned, like, I don't know. You don't know enough about the white family. You should read a piece by a scholar by the name of Dreama Moon about white enculturation. If you just put Dreama Moon, G-R-E-A, I'm going to put the piece in the video. I'm going to put the piece in the comments of the video, in the description of the video. And that'll tell you that actually the white family is where white people learn how to be white. So there you go. I got receipts. And if you don't think that the white church is where white people learn how to be white, can you find that Jesus Saves picture? Yeah. Is that possible?
It should be on here.
Yeah. Well, if you don't think that white church is where white supremacy is reproduced because their white Jesus gives white people the peace of heaven for just sustaining white supremacy and terrorism. We call it privilege, but it's really terrorism. It's privilege if you're white. And it feels like privilege. It feels like terrorism if you're everybody else. Because everybody else is just scared of white people. Because you tick them off and then like... Oh yeah, the Bobby Wright. Yeah, okay. So this is the Jesus Savior. If you don't think that the white church is where whiteness is learned, I don't know. Like that's I don't know. I didn't tell him to pose for that. That's not Photoshop. That's not. But did you find the Bobby Wright piece, or is that gone?
I think let me try to find it again.
That's Sunday school. That's Sunday school, right? Did you? Not. No, it's fine. All right. So anyway, we lost this fight because we forgot to talk about the fight. The fight's not like Fight Club. You got to talk about the fight. And I want Matthew to. What else you got on your mind, man?
I also think there's a sort of you have to be uncomfortable in the fight as well, because if you're comfortable in the fight, that means you aren't really fighting anything.
Yeah, you have to eat the risk. It's not just work, it's risk. And when people start like dividing risk up in unfair ways, that's a form of injustice. We're very good about talking about the injustice of the division of labor. We are awful about the injustice of dividing risk. And people don't want to eat the risk of alienating themselves from their family or their job or whatever. But I'm saying if you're serious about the fight, you need to be serious about an equal distribution of the risk.
I saw a Twitter post the other day, and it was back when like Punch the Nazi was like a huge thing. It was like if Punch the Nazi was real, we would see a lot more grandfathers with just black eyes walking around.
If punching Nazis was what?
If punching Nazis was real, we could see a lot more grandfathers with black eyes.
Now. Yeah, no, people don't punch Nazis. You're gonna go. You have dinner with your Nazi relation every Sunday, people, and you know what? You are quiet about it because you want the inheritance, and you don't want to like have friction in the family. You don't want to be divisive. Yeah. All right. That's all I have to say about it. You want bills passed? Work the electorate. Forget the elected officials. They're garbage anyway. And if you if you try to work elected officials, do it in public with a video camera because it doesn't matter what they say. What matters might be getting them to evade in public on camera. All right? That's all I got.